Greetings and welcome to part 4 of the Whitney series, where we're going to get into Bobbi Kris's accident and transition charts. So let's dive right into that first house. We see that the moon was in the sign of her natal moon. So the moon was lighting up her Mars. The moon being that chaos energy and Mars being temper, anger. It can definitely be a weapon, aggression. This also, oddly enough, is a lot of that, another marker to how she was found in that tub. So this is that moon-Mars energy. Because remember, she has that moon at 22 degrees natally, which is that snuff or be snuffed degree, that Saturn energy. So the fact that the moon was in the sign of Cancer at the time of this accident is wild. Then we see here this Jupiter on her Chiron at the exact degree, 18 degrees. Both planets happen to be retrograde at the time. So this is a different kind of expansion with Jupiter here being on her Chiron. And to me, this is certainly a marker of that sibling energy where her brother turned boyfriend must have had something to do with it. That's what I'm leaning in on, what I see in this chart here. Then we have just trining that, we have the North Node at the same degree as Jupiter, as her natal Jupiter. So this is a very interesting energy here with Jupiter. North Node, Jupiter in Libra. We know that at the time of this accident, that she was getting ready to bounce. She was getting ready to change her lifestyle. Okay, to follow her mother's footsteps. She did, right, that Leo energy, that third house, she was getting ready to pursue a singing career. That's definitely third house energy and big Leo energy as well, because singing most certainly is a creative expression. And with that North Node, you know, not only was she getting ready to be in relationship with that expansion of her career, she was also looking to get into relationship with her father more and her siblings, because she didn't really see them or talk to them much due to the relationship she was in. So she was getting ready to make some big moves for her career. In fact, that's what's also interesting, is that it's happening in that fifth house, right? More of that Leo energy, more of that creative self-expression, and getting ready to be more committed to that energy as opposed to being in a codependent relationship that was abusive. Well, we also see here that that Saturn in Sagittarius, more of that Jupiter energy here. Jupiter being the ruler of Sagittarius, with Saturn and Sag transiting her sixth house. We see that this is an opportunity for her to change her routines, which she most certainly was doing. And, you know, with that Pluto, her natal Pluto in Scorpio here, right, that was what she was planning to do, right? That rebirth, that transition energy. And again, more of this Sag energy with her North Node being in the sixth house and Saturn getting ready to cross over it. We are seeing that, yeah, she was going in that North Node. She was getting ready to build new routines around expansion with what she was doing in her day-to-day. But what's interesting here is more of that. We have the Sun and Mercury in Aquarius. So another marker to her wanting to move, her plan to move and to sever ties. and to expand. Okay, because again, the 9th house is a Sag house. So having the sun here, we see that her thoughts on expansion and reinvention were most certainly in the air. But here's the other thing, is that Aquarius energy, especially at 11 degrees, can be a rather sharp sword. Right? Like, again, all kinds of different things within the lens and cycle of the energies present could happen. And we see here that an expansion did take place, just not the one that she planned. Because here with the sun getting into the house in which her natal Saturn in Aquarius is in, and we do have some Leo energy in opposition being lit up at that time as well. I mean, opposition is completion. Opposition can also be opposition, difficulty. So here we see where, Saturn, what Saturn's bringing to the table, not only changing the routines, but we also see the struggle with being able to move on from that routine, that there was an abrupt stop here. And we also see what also played into that sudden change. We see this big old Pisces stellium meaning a bunch of planets in the same sign. We have Venus, Neptune, Mars, and Chiron all in the sign of Pisces. Yeesh! All just looming over her natal sun, Mercury. Wow. Okay, because this is, again, the accident in the tub being found in water. All right. We know that she was without oxygen. We know that she had different substances in her blood at the time as well. And what's interesting is that this represents all this Pisces energy, especially that Neptune is addressing the coma that she found herself in. This Pisces stellium also represents the institution, being institutionalized. Like, she was in a coma for 6 months. So she was living in a hospital, unconscious, for 6 months, unable to speak about what had happened to her. But this is where I'm going to say, moving into here, where the Uranus and the South Node is on her Venus, that while this was a sudden act of aggression that could have taken her out with the South Node here, to quote the incantation that Bobbi and Whitney kept repeating during her birth, she was bigger than big and stronger than strong. While facing the unexpected, while trying to change her trajectory, she put up a fight to stay and to try and bring some justice to her situation and what happened to her. But we'll see here, this is the transition chart where she had a lot of improvement. She actually somehow gained consciousness and started to improve greatly. And amazing, right? But they moved her to a different hospital, and because they wanted the facilities to be something that would help support her in her healing process. But then things took a turn suddenly, and I think there is a couple reasons for that. I think not only, when we'll see in the chart that there were some things here that just showed some interesting cycles that contributed to things being over, but then also, some circumstantial stuff. So She was having a Mars return, because remember, this happened, she had the accident 6 months before she actually passed. But she was having a Mars return. It was literally sitting right on her natal moon. 21 degree Mars in Cancer to 22 degrees moon in Cancer. So again, this moon Mars energy, this chaos, this sudden transition that no one really saw coming after her making such great improvements. We also see here where Saturn, again, transiting that 6th house, was in retrograde, coming back to sit on that Pluto in Scorpio. So Saturn in Scorpio with that Pluto in Scorpio, the moon being in Sagittarius this time at 1 degree. We know that she had the North Node in Sagittarius, so this is that 1 degree speaks to a new beginning. Especially here with Saturn sitting on top of her natal Pluto in Scorpio. This is an indication of her health having some sort of block or some sort of transition or transmutation. We also see here where Pluto in Capricorn in the 7th house, she's in that relationship with transition. This Pluto, sextile Pluto energy. But really here I'm looking again at this Chiron sitting on her Mercury at 22 degrees. And that's the other thing I wanted to speak on, where I feel like part of the struggle was the move itself, being moved to a different hospital. While the hospital may have had the resources that she needed in order to thrive and heal, I think being away from her siblings for a little bit might have also been the struggle. I also want to mention here that when she did pass, that was July 26th, 2015, it was in Leo country. So it would also be safe to say that she was missing her mom, that she was also just dealing with a lot of grief. The grief of what happened to them both, not having any privacy while going through having a coma, you know, having paparazzi constantly trying to take pictures of you being in that state is crazy. But also it's talking to like maybe the nervous system was dealing with a lot more damage than was probably understood at the time. But here we see that that Uranus still hovering over her natal Venus in Aries. So I think that, you know, Uranus had the last say really in everything in regards to a sudden change of trajectory, that really her Mars return like played a huge part in this transition. But again, like taking note that, you know, the date of her passing in July, and her birthday being in March, this was not her time. This was not a natural cycle getting to complete itself. But we do see where the energies were there for that to be able to take place. So I just want to bring back the chart, the bi-wheel of Whitney and Bobbi Kris. to just mention something more about that dialogue that, I don't know, it disappoints me how so much has happened since then in regards to there being some evidence with the sibling turned lover. I just can't say his name, y'all. I just can't do it. And his involvement with both of their passing, and that big ups to Bobbi Brown for doing right by both of them, for bringing that to court, to having that be out there, to bringing him to his responsibility, which he could not follow through with or stand up to because he ended up unaliving himself. And I'm saying all this to say is that I am disappointed in how much they keep pushing a narrative that Bobbi Kris and Whitney died from their addictions, when that's not completely true. That yes, they may have struggled with impulse control, and they were both on the mend to change that. But it sells more records, it sells more everything, right? To keep that trope going that women of the global majority just couldn't get their stuff together, right? That they died of their addictions, when that's not fully the truth. That some of the things that they played into did have their influence on how they passed, but really it was someone who didn't want to lose their gravy train that was really the real responsible party for both of their passing. And yet that's, even though the court ruled that yes, he has some responsibility to that, but this is not what's discussed. But I wanted to point out that they had such an interesting relationship, that they had a partnership that transcended time, that these lessons, especially here we see Mars and Jupiter here, and then we see Venus and Jupiter here. They were in a deep relationship that that has continued from, if you can subscribe to past lives, Bobbi Kris came with her to this life as well. Here's Whitney's South Node. Here's Bobbi Kris with that Neptune and Uranus in Capricorn. That this struggle with boundaries, impulse control, addiction and escapism and codependency is something that followed them, something that they struggled with in the last lifetime. But it was there, all the stuff was there for them to transition out of it. And while it was difficult, I think that they were making headway, but I think that that's also why they passed. Because if they made headway, that sibling turned partner would have lost his bankroll. He would have lost his spotlight. And I think he had grown accustomed to being taken care of and being seen for being associated with a family. And he tried desperately by any means necessary to stay a part of that family, just so that he could continue his lifestyle. And it wasn't, I don't think it was just him. Like, again, the industry also benefited from them staying in a state of confusion and addiction and codependency. So yeah, I'm not wild about the industry and how it seems as though they're more interested in even helping to get artists to stay in these states that of difficulty, addiction, because it sells. And even as they are no longer with us, that continues to make more money for these companies without having to deal with the artists themselves anymore. So just shout out to Bobbi Kris. You are bigger than big, stronger than strong. I'm glad you were trying to make your way in a world that wanted you to stay the same. All right, next we'll have one more video in the series where we'll look at some of their relationships.